Welcome to the Wellness Roundtable, a new podcast created by the Global Wellness Institute. This is Season 1, Longevity, and I'm your host, Alexia Brew, an exited media founder turned longevity entrepreneur. Together, we'll explore the scientific and societal frenzy around all things longevity, examining whether it's a golden age or a gold rush. Before we get started, we'd like to thank our partner, Fountain Life, for supporting this podcast. When was the last time you really thought about your health before something went wrong? We're living in an age where science and technology have unlocked the ability to detect disease before it shows symptoms and take action when it matters most. That's the foundation of Fountain Life, a visionary longevity center co-founded by Tony Robbins, Peter Diamandis, and Dr. Bill Kapp. They've brought together some of the world's most advanced minds in medicine to flip the healthcare model from reactive to proactive. Fountain Life is redefining what it means to take control of your health using AI-powered multimodal diagnostics that go far beyond the standard checkup and inform a personalized optimization plan designed to maximize your vitality and extend your health span. Fountain Life has been a trusted partner of the Global Wellness Institute for many years, and we share the common mission to empower health and wellness worldwide through proactive medicine, scientific innovation, and technology. This is the future of healthcare, and you don't have to wait for it. So choose to live without limits. Head to fountainlife.com to learn more. That's fountainlife.com, because a healthy person has 100 dreams, but a sick person has only one. Welcome back to the Wellness Roundtable, where we explore the science, business, and culture shaping the future of longevity and wellness. Today's guest is Dr. Robin Berzin, founder and CEO of Parsley Health, the largest functional medicine and longevity clinic in the U.S. Dr. Berzin is a Columbia-trained physician with roots in yoga and integrative health, and she spent the past decade reimagining what clinical care can look like when it puts the whole person and prevention at the center. We talk about her unlikely path from yoga student to MD to digital health founder, and how that journey informs Parsley's mission to make personalized root cause medicine radically more accessible. Dr. Berzin shares the 6 biomarker domains she believes every clinician should be tracking, why functional medicine is the true foundation of longevity care, and how Parsley is using AI to scale personalized interventions without sacrificing clinical rigor. We also get into why hormone therapy is the next big longevity lever for women, what makes a high-quality supplement stack, and why strength training is her number one non-negotiable right now. This conversation is packed with insights for anyone building in wellness or simply trying to navigate this fast-moving landscape with more clarity and confidence. Let's jump into this fascinating conversation with Dr. Robin Berzin. Robin Berzin, welcome to the Wellness Roundtable. You and I go way back when you were starting Parsley Health. I was doing well and good, and you were one of our favorite panelists, keynoters at a bunch of events we did, and it's so nice to reconnect.
It's so nice to be here. It's so nice to see you. I love that we get to have another conversation in 2025. So thank you for inviting me.
I know, it sort of feels like what's going on now in longevity is like what was going on in wellness 10 or 15 years ago. So we'll get into that a little bit, but it is a deja vu moment, right?
It absolutely is. And I love it because it's brought the community back together as one of the nice things about this massive interest in longevity, personalized health, functional medicine. It's really exciting.
So I'd love to start and ground people in your background and how you came to medicine and then went from medicine to Parsley. So can you just paint that narrative?
For sure. So I'm a doctor. I trained at Columbia and Mount Sinai Hospital here in New York, where I live. And I went into medicine as the weird duck who was already interested in integrative medicine, holistic forms of medicine, functional medicine. And the joke I always make is that like everyone at Columbia is there to be a cardiac surgeon or a urologist or something. And so I was a very strange duck at Columbia Med because I was really interested in prevention and this holistic approach to health and helping people thrive, not just survive. And that really for me started in my post-college years. I was living in New York. I discovered yoga. Growing up, I had no exposure to yoga. I was a sports lacrosse soccer kid, I never knew what yoga was, and I certainly didn't know what meditation was. And these were things that I really just sort of happened into in my early 20s in New York. And I thought they were incredibly weird at first. But soon I noticed that I was present. I felt good. I felt in my body in new ways. And just that simple feeling catapulted me literally into a career in health. And so I couldn't have predicted it. I wasn't pre med in college, but through this interest in yoga, this interest in health, I found my way to medical school and then into functional medicine and longevity. And here I am.
And can you tell us about Parsley Health for people who aren't familiar? Just give them a sense of what it is.
So, Parsley Health is the largest functional medicine and longevity clinic in the United States. We're available online in 50 states. So, across the country, we've treated over 50,000 patients. And we are also in person in New York and LA, but most of our members work with us totally online. And I started Parsley Health back in 2016. So, it's been 9 years because I saw that functional medicine and longevity care weren't accessible. They were offered in very small local private practices that were extremely expensive. I saw that the care wasn't always evidence based. It was sort of a hodgepodge of practices. And I knew that this medicine worked. I worked in some top notch, top tier private practices with big name doctors we've all heard of in Massachusetts and in New York. And I saw that the medicine was like transforming people's lives. It was putting autoimmune disease into remission. It was getting rid of gut issues that people had for years. It was reversing heart disease. It was helping women get pregnant. I mean, the results were amazing, but the practice of it was really archaic and slow and kind of all over the place. And I said, how do we make this medicine evidence-based, standardized, and scalable so it's something that a lot of people can have access to? Because if we think about it, everyone should have this kind of doctor who's not only treating their disease with medications. Yes, we do that at Parsley too, but that we're also leveraging nutrition and sleep and fitness and supplements and advanced testing in ways regular doctors aren't, so that people get healthier in addition to just managing disease.
And has the vision stayed the same throughout, or has it evolved? I always think it's interesting how founders start with one problem they're going to solve and how that changes and evolves over time.
You know, it's funny with Parsley, the mission and the why have not changed. Our company's stated mission is to bring the world's best possible medicine to everyone everywhere. And that has not changed. The how we're doing that, we started off with brick and mortar clinics that had a mix of telehealth. Then we went online nationwide, actually before COVID. And then COVID sort of changed the game, and people's relationship to seeing a doctor online became much more normal in a good way. We then went through a bit of a phase of starting to sell Parsley into employers and health insurance, which was a really big challenge. I had started the company as a consumer company and then had always envisioned we'd work with employers and big health insurance companies like Aetna and United. But the work and the challenge of actually doing that kind of took over our lives for a few years, to be honest with you. And it was amazing. And now we have 16 million covered lives, meaning 16 million people are in network for Parsley today on the East and West Coast. We're also available cash pay everywhere. And now, interestingly for me, the focus has gone back to the root and really shifted more into the consumer space again, which is my love, like where I'm happiest. I like serving and building for the people who are going to use the care more than I love serving and selling into the healthcare system, although that's a way to get it to more people. And so now we're in this moment. We actually just launched 7 new programs and products last week in a couple of states. They should be available nationwide in the following couple of months. And we're in this period of hyper innovation again, leveraging AI. And that is really fun and exciting and is bringing me back to the early days, because it had been a while since we innovated and built and designed in this way.
Yeah.
And I'm getting to do that again, which is really fun.
That's exciting. So when did you first start noticing the mainstreaming of the longevity movement in terms of patients starting to ask for things longevity related, or you as just a practitioner starting to see this sea change coming?
It's really been in the past 2 to 3 years that a massive sea change has happened. Search traffic for functional medicine is up 300% in the past 3 years. The longevity medicine market, which was super tiny, is projected along with functional medicine to be like 124 billion in the next 6 years, which is massive with a 30% year over year growth. I mean, it's exploded. And really what it came from my perspective, is from COVID. And to say it simply, we thought we were going to die and now we're going to live. And during COVID, people like Dr. Attia and Dr. Huberman came to the fore. And through talking about COVID and talking about health, they really grew large followings. And I think in some ways, lit a match under this kindling that was there, this hunger for this kind of information. And it just exploded. I think COVID put health and prevention and testing and science on the map of our everyday lives in a way that literally no one could ignore. And it turned us all on to this notion of longevity, health span, wellness, functional health as opposed to disease in ways that I don't think such a mass audience had been paying as much attention to.
Yeah, I think that's spot on. And I wonder, like, with all of these different terms like functional medicine, integrative health, root cause medicine, longevity medicine, precision medicine, where you think things will land, or will all of these terms be used?
You know what? I think the good news is that they're all related.
Yeah.
Functional medicine is a form of medicine where we identify and treat the root cause of disease, and we optimize your health so that you can enjoy greater vitality now and greater health span in the future. That's what functional medicine has been doing forever. Functional medicine is longevity medicine. What you see now is the longevity medicine movement. A lot of what we hear about it is hyper focused on people who want to live to 120 and using biohacking or tools like peptides or plasmapheresis or some of these really advanced tools to try to optimize and hack our way to longer lifespan. And I think all of that is amazing and exciting and fun and cool. And where I see longevity medicine miss the mark and where I love functional medicine also treats disease. And so if right now you're dealing with joint pain and swelling, and maybe you have an autoimmune disease, or you have polycystic ovarian syndrome and your periods are irregular, or you have migraine headaches, or you have GI condition like Crohn's disease, longevity medicine typically says, okay, well, that's not my problem.
Right.
You go see a regular doctor for that. And in functional medicine, we're doing all of the longevity medicine. We're optimizing nutrition and supplements. We're prescribing some of the lifestyle practices and medications that can help you expand health span. But we're also doing the right diagnostic testing and treating the diseases today that are going to impact that health span. And I just see too many people who are willing to spend $5,000 a month on peptides and scans and various things, but are not actually treating the root cause of their current illnesses, not understanding that these illnesses are what are going to shorten your health span and are reducing your vitality today more than any impact you could have from some of these peptides that you're taking, for example.
That's a fascinating phenomenon. It's like losing the forest through the trees, or whatever the saying is.
Yeah. Some of these longevity tools and practices, they're not even the icing on the cake. They're like the writing of your name on the icing.
Right.
And the cake is functional medicine and the icing is health optimization. And then you have these longevity tools right on top. And I think a lot of people are getting introduced to some of those tools, but then realizing, hey, I'm in perimenopause and I actually need someone to do the right diagnostic tests and prescribe hormone replacement therapy for me. We actually have a great partnership with a top longevity clinic here in New York City. And at Parsley, we offer some of those services, but when it comes to some of the really invasive services that need almost like an outpatient OR, we leave that to those guys and they do it really, really well.
So that's a good segue into sort of talking about biomarkers, which we've touched on in this series, but we haven't really done anything foundational on what the key longevity biomarkers are and why they're important, and how a clinician might think about them differently through a longevity lens. So can you talk us through what a standard set of labs would look like at Parsley?
Yes. So we do more in-depth, personalized, and proactive testing. In conventional medicine, and this drove me crazy in my training, we are waiting for the wheels to fall off the wagon and then running a test and saying, yes, in fact, the wheels have fallen off the wagon. That is not productive in a world in which 100 million Americans have metabolic syndrome or diabetes, in which 90% of our healthcare costs are due to chronic lifestyle driven diseases. It just doesn't work. And these tests are really affordable and available, and they're blood work, but we go beyond the 19 or so tests that a regular doctor, a primary care doctor looks at. And we even go beyond some of the tests that some of the more sort of fitness platforms are offering. And we look at 6 domains that are really critical to optimizing your health, getting ahead of disease, and being even healthier next year than you are today.
So what are those 6 domains?
So the 6 domains are, first of all, looking at cardiovascular health. And we're not just looking at a standard cholesterol profile. We're looking at markers like ApoB, which is the number one predictive marker of heart disease risk over time. We're looking at lipoprotein little a, which is rarely tested by regular doctors, but is an independent risk factor for heart disease and tends to be genetic if it's high and only has specific interventions that can get it down. I always see people going to do their tests and they're like, my lipoprotein A is high. I'm like, well, that's great that you did a consumer test. Have you seen a doctor? Because the only thing that will get that down as of today is a statin. The only thing. Although there are new drugs in the pipeline coming out. So we look at heart health. Second, we look at metabolic health in a deeper way. We look at a hemoglobin A1C, which is the measure for diabetes, but we're also looking at fasting insulin, for example, and fasting glucose to understand, are you on a trajectory to have an abnormal A1C? Let's get ahead of that.
Can you explain what hemoglobin A1C is and where you like to see it versus conventional?
Yeah. So there's optimal and then there's normal. And unfortunately, normal for our population in the United States, where 100 million people, a third of our population are metabolically ill, is not a good normal to pursue. So we want to look for optimal. A hemoglobin A1C for us at Parsley that's optimal is under 5.4, ideally around 5.1, 5.2, 5.3. An abnormal A1C is 5.7 or above in conventional medicine. And hemoglobin A1C is actually a look at your red blood cells. And the analogy I always use is that it's like, how frosted are your frosted flakes? If your blood sugar is imbalanced on a daily basis, meaning you're spiking and you're having a hard time controlling it, your red blood cells literally get coated. They get glycosylated. They get coated in sugar crystals. And when that happens, red blood cells have to be flexible. They have to move. They have to go through teeny tiny little blood vessels and deliver oxygen. When they get coated in this crust of snow, of sugar, literal sugar, they lose that flexibility. They can't deliver oxygen as well. This is why people with advanced diabetes lose feeling in their hands and feet and they go blind, because we're cutting off the blood supply to all of these extremities and these tiny little capillaries. And so what hemoglobin A1C looks at is a 3-month look back. It's actually looking into the past and saying, over the past 3 months, how sugared, how frosted are your red blood cells? And so it's a good measure, and it's a good measure to diagnose metabolic syndrome or disease, but it's not enough, because we want to look at functionally, how are you measuring your blood sugar? And one of the things we do, we not only are running all of this blood work, but we're also prescribing a continuous glucose monitor that we then work with our health coaches to understand how what you're eating is influencing your metabolic health, because everybody's a little different in how you metabolize food. And so we help you figure out, well, why is my blood sugar spiking? And what can I do about it? And how can I eat differently, move differently, address my body composition, lean muscle mass, so that those spikes that drive up that hemoglobin A1C even out.
Gotcha. Okay. All right. So we've covered cardiovascular.
Yeah, we've covered cardiovascular health, we've covered metabolic health. The next one we're testing is sex hormones. So proactively understanding testosterone is a measure of longevity. If your testosterone for a woman or a man is cratering, that's not only lower libido, but it's also the ability to build lean muscle mass. It's a measure of your overall health. And especially for women, testing your hormones at least once a year, sometimes twice a year, to understand what's my baseline and how are they changing over time can be game changing when it comes to fertility, when it comes to going through menopause, which 100% of women will go through, and allows us to target and understand therapies that will balance your hormones. So we're looking at sex hormones because they are a vital sign. They are a measure of how your body is functioning. And then another area is thyroid health. This one's especially important for women. Thyroid is the foot on the gas of our metabolism. It has impact for bone density. We are not measuring it routinely enough, and regular doctors are not measuring it in the right way. 1 in 5 women will be diagnosed with a thyroid condition in her lifetime. And so we're really missing the mark a lot. Women are being told they have depression or that their digestive issue is because of what they're eating. Meanwhile, they have hypothyroidism or they have Hashimoto's, which is an autoimmune thyroid condition that gets missed all the time.
So the conventional medicine would only have like 19 biomarkers. Is that what you said, that your GP might look at, something like that?
Primary care doctor, it obviously varies and they might test specific things relative to you, but it's a very basic and small set of biomarkers. The difference is they're not proactively testing, nor are they trying to understand your body as an ecosystem. Your constipation could be because of your thyroid. But if you just treat constipation as a deficiency of a laxative, which is how most doctors will treat you, they'll say, oh, you're having trouble going to the bathroom. Here's a fiber supplement. Here, drink more water. Well, that might work. That might be okay. But let's put the pieces together and look at a proactive, holistic view. And if your thyroid is actually the reason you're constipated, not all the Metamucil and water in the world is going to help, right? So people get stuck over and over again because of our lack of doing some of these pretty basic tests that Parsley now offers to everyone everywhere. And we've made it quite accessible to get tests that on a cash basis that oftentimes your regular doctor will say, well, this isn't covered by insurance, so I'm not going to test it. And if you get the insurance bill for it, it can be thousands of dollars because it's sort of not the standard test. And we've made that hundreds of dollars at Parsley.
That's amazing. And a lot of times, like my doctor, for example, they don't even test for ApoE, which is the Alzheimer's predictive, is it a mutation, I guess?
Yeah, it's not a mutation, but as so much as it's a genetic variant. So ApoE is one of the things that we recommend everyone proactively test once. Now, this is a test you don't need every year. This is a test you just need one time because it's genetics and it doesn't change. You inherit 2 copies of this gene, one from mom, one from dad. And if you have 2 copies of ApoE4, you have something like a 20x higher likelihood of developing early Alzheimer's. And if you have 1 copy, you don't have quite as high of a risk, but you still have an increased risk of developing early Alzheimer's. We're now understanding dementia as a category and Alzheimer's in general as having aspects of them that are preventable or the ability to slow down that cognitive dysfunction through diet, through exercise, through community. And so a lot of people used to say, well, why would I bother knowing about my ApoE4 status? And now we understand that there's a lot you can do to optimize brain function and brain health. Recent study just came out showing the ketogenic diet actually massively increases brain-derived neurotrophic factor, which is your brain's ability to grow new synapses and grow new pathways. Exercise massively increases BDNF, has been shown to stave off cognitive dysfunction and improve cognitive dysfunction, including Alzheimer's when it's happening. So I think we're in the verge of, as we do these tests, it allows us to get ahead of things we used to be behind. And then when we're ahead of them, we start having the opportunity to implement interventions and we see that they work. And then we get the longevity and the health span that everybody's looking for.
And so talk to us about, how often you're repeating these tests, how often is beneficial versus like too much, and then also some of those interventions.
So on the testing, we recommend a full baseline once a year and then a follow-up for a big number of the core markers in that baseline at the 6-month mark. So I like to see everybody getting tested twice a year. I think getting tested twice a year for this set of analytes looking at thyroid, metabolism, electrolytes, and liver and kidney function, heart health, inflammation, sex hormones. These are the things that we want to be looking at least twice a year. And that is a great baseline to be tracking. It also gives you the opportunity to see how the things you're doing are impacting your results, which I find is so motivating.
Yes, totally. So it's also been cool to see in the last couple of years all of these different testing services like Inside Tracker, like Mark Hyman's Function, there's Life Force. So there's a whole plethora of really affordable places you can now, as a consumer, get your blood work done. For these other places, would love your thoughts on them. I say one of my frustrations trying one of them is you don't have a doctor walking you through the results. And I felt like the one that I tried was very much geared towards selling me their supplements, which is fine if you need supplementation, but it just felt like the service was really more geared towards that. And then also my results were then like locked in this system. And so anyway, those were some of the pain points that I found, but would love your thoughts on, yeah, just this explosion of blood testing companies.
I think it's great because I think anything from blood work to MRIs to DEXA scans that gives us more data and understanding about our own bodies that we
Mm-hmm.
can then use to be healthier is a game changer. It enables a huge mass group of people, and it's not available to everyone yet. These services, they still cost money, but we've brought the price down tremendously and we've increased the access tremendously. And through this information, people are discovering things that they're taking action on. And the healthcare system is going to save a lot of money. And we as
Huge.
individuals will save a lot of money when we get ahead of developing diabetes and reverse it in its tracks. When we find out that we have inflammation and get an early diagnosis of autoimmune disease. 80% of autoimmune disease occurs in women for reasons that are poorly understood. And the average diagnosis to get a time for autoimmune is like 5 to 7 years. And we do a ton of autoimmune care at Parsley. By testing some of these factors early on, you can start to see that the body's inflamed. You can get ahead of it. Autoimmune is a disease that slowly starts destroying a part of your body through prolonged inflammation. The more ahead of it you get, the less destruction of your joints, your skin, your thyroid, your gut that happens. I just think it's fantastic. I think what makes us especially unique, though, is that we also have the care.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Exactly.
what we've seen a lot of is exactly what you said. Great. I got these test results. Maybe I did it once or twice. I don't really know what to do with this information. And so people are constantly bringing those tests to Parsley, which is why we launched our own. And we have a highly trained team of functional medicine doctors and health coaches and nurses who will work with you to understand your results. And then if you need more than just understanding your results, you need care for a hormone issue or something else, we'll do that too. And I think that for me as a physician, is so important to tie that full circle. So we're, as far as I know, like the only hub for both diagnostics and care
Yeah.
that's out there right now.
I think that's so important to touch on because there's this plethora of point solutions, but to tie it all together, I think is so important. Can you talk to us about like how you layer in interventions, nutrition, movement, sleep, and then supplementation, and how that your team works together?
Yes. So all of our doctors, they're board certified doctors, and then they go through additional training in functional medicine. We actually have our own fellowship. And they learn to prescribe a 10-point plan. And I won't go over all the points, but the points, instead of just prescribing a drug, we do prescribe drugs. Drugs are powerful tools and they're amazing. Sometimes you need an antibiotic for your UTI, the end, right? Well, that's it. So we prescribe drugs. We prescribe highly evidence-based professional grade supplements. And in my training at places like Columbia, I wasn't trained in supplements. So this is an additional training to understand, first of all, what are high quality supplements? What are legitimate supplements? And what's the crapola on the shelves of the grocery store? Secondarily, how do you use the supplements as targeted tools in an evidence based way? For example, we treat small intestinal bacterial overgrowth. It's a very common GI disorder that's the number one cause of IBS, irritable bowel syndrome today. And you can use antimicrobial herbal medicine, so supplements, but professional ones. And we use antibiotics for this condition as well. The herbal protocols work better. They go head to head in the research. We've treated thousands and thousands of people with this. The herbal protocols are what really knock it out. And so sometimes it's about using the right tool for the job. And we're always just looking at root cause. So, yes, I can prescribe a painkiller for your migraine, but why are you having migraines? And so we'll do the tests and we'll examine your history and your story in a deeper way to understand, well, where do these migraines come from?
Yeah. And are people on a portal? Like, how do you track the effectiveness of the interventions?
This comes back to the data. So one of the ways we track the effectiveness is through blood work. And that's why we're doing blood work at least twice a year, sometimes more. It allows us to see, is your blood sugar coming down? Is your inflammation reducing? Is your testosterone increasing? It allows us to really track. Another way we track is symptom severity. We actually have our own proprietary symptom severity tool called the Parsley Symptom Index. And it allows us to track symptom severity. And so people fill it out before every visit. And we'll see how people go from a symptom score of like 120, which means I've got a zillion symptoms, down to a symptom score of 20, which means I'm feeling great. And it's so funny because people forget. Like, I don't know about you, but I can't remember what I ate for lunch like 2 days ago, let alone how my digestion felt last Wednesday. Like, there's no way. But when you do the symptom score over time, and then you see the patient and they're like, oh, I forgot that 6 months ago my periods were crazy irregular and I was dealing with all this bloating and I had all these headaches. All of that will be better and we can show it to them on the score. And so when I say it's the data, I think that one thing that we're really terrible about in medicine at large is tracking progress over time. And I think that that's something that we take really seriously, because you ask, like, well, how do we know it's working?
Mm-hmm.
You know it's working if it shows up in your labs and if your symptoms get better. The end.
Right.
Really simple.
Yeah. And just to put a bow on this, like in terms of biomarkers that are like either overhyped or flying under the radar, like give us your ideas of both.
Overhyped or flying under the radar. I think that some of the markers that we're looking at that are really important that people often miss are heavy metals. People have really, really crazy levels of mercury that are interfering with their immune systems and brain health long term because of eating fish and sushi. And
do you think once a week is safe?
It really depends on how good of a detoxifier you are. And I personally, I'll eat tuna once a year.
Oh, wow. Okay. Yeah.
And I have 2 copies of MTHFR variant, so I'm not a good detoxifier, although I take methylated B vitamins every day to support my body through that. But tuna, swordfish, the high mercury fish, that's like I'm at the amazing sushi place once a year. That is not I'm at the grocery store grabbing the tuna sushi. Absolutely not.
Okay. Wow. That is sobering. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I had really high mercury levels before I had my first kid. And I did IV chelation to get them down because I'd been pescatarian for a long time. So I'd been a big sushi eater and a big tuna eater. And I'm a Baltimore girl. I love my fish. And it was really egregious. It was something I really worked on before I got pregnant for the first time. So now I feel like I put in the work. I think the other things that people often miss is inflammation. People are often chronically inflamed. They have Hashimoto's thyroiditis. Believe it or not, I'm seeing it more and more in men. We think of thyroid issues as a female issue, but more and more men with autoimmune thyroid conditions, driven in part by intestinal permeability, which is also called leaky gut, due to things like pesticides in our diet, chronic stress, ibuprofen, alcohol, gluten sensitivity. All of those things create these sort of microscopic leaks, if you will, in our gut that trigger our immune system. And so a lot more people are developing autoimmune disease, and they're like not figuring out, why can't I lose weight? Why am I brain fogged? Why are my periods irregular? And underneath all of that is inflammation.
So those are, I think, really important ones that are like flying under the radar, as you said, or people are not paying enough attention to. Any that you think are sort of overhyped?
I still think we're in the early days of getting this information out to people and people testing for things proactively. So it's hard for me to say that anything's overhyped. I really don't feel that way. The only test I really don't like for the women listening is some of the services out there offered to women, AMH, anti-Müllerian hormone, which is a test developed by the reproductive endocrinology field to assess whether their likelihood of success with IVF. It is not a measure of your ability to get pregnant. And I'm seeing a lot of women getting these tests that just include AMH, really confused and stressed by this number. And we deliberately did not include it in our female health panel because feel so strongly that it should be used very specifically and very rarely and in context of fertility treatment. I had a very low AMH. I got pregnant on my own without intervention 3 times over 35. I have thousands of patients that we've helped get pregnant with a low AMH. And I don't think it's a test that should be just thrown out there without context. But, I think this is where, as a female physician and a mom, I feel like I'm looking out for people and not just testing everything. I think that we need to be selective. And so Parsley in that way, we will order that test, and we do sometimes, but we do so as part of her fertility workup that has context around other things.
Got it. And then when your doctors are working with people after their workup on supplementation, what is that process like? I find that so many people I know who are even super informed are just like creating their own supplement stacks just based on the latest thing that they've read, or they're just like freewheeling it. Is that okay? Or are there like contraindications the way there are with medication?
There are contraindications. If you have liver or kidney issues, if you're pregnant, there's certain things you shouldn't be taking. If you're breastfeeding, there's certain things you shouldn't be taking. More often than what I see is people kind of dabbling in supplements. They take a little of this, they take a little of that. They don't take them very consistently. They have a supplement graveyard, which is the drawer we all have in our kitchen or our bathroom. That's like all the things we bought with our good intentions. Mine is like a mess. It's piled. But the reality is supplements are not like a Xanax. It's not a one-on, one-off. You have to take it every day. And what I see is so important in supplements is quality, consistency, and personalization. So quality are these professional grade GMP certified supplements. If you're buying it at the Walgreens or the CVS or even the fancy grocery store, it's probably very low quality. Don't buy consumer supplements.
What are some of the professional grade ones that you like?
We work with a lot of different brands. I really like Orthomolecular, Zymogen, Metagenics, Pure Encapsulations. Paul Stamets' functional mushroom line, Host Defense, is really good for functional mushrooms, not psychedelic mushrooms, functional mushrooms. And there are some consumer brands that have high quality standards. Ritual, I know because I'm an advisor. Seed, the probiotic, I also know the founder and founding team there very well. But I would say those are extreme exceptions. And generally speaking, the professional grade supplements, all of Parsley's branded supplements are made by the manufacturers I just listed. So they're professional quality, meaning they are what they say they are. They're safe, they're tested, they are made in pharmaceutical grade facilities. And most importantly, because everyone fixates on is it contaminated? And yes, of course, we don't want it to be contaminated, right. But is it a high enough quantity and potency and bioavailability, meaning your body can use it to actually do something?
Yeah.
The biggest problem I see with supplements is that they're fairy dust. There's so little active ingredient of whatever's in it that it's not doing anything. And so there's quality, then there's consistency. Give every supplements 2 to 4 weeks. If it's something for your hormones, you got to give it 90 days. And so people just sort of dabble in them. And then they're like, well, I don't know if it's working. And I'm like, well, you're not tracking your symptoms. You're not tracking your blood work. And you took it like 3 days out of 7. We have no idea if it's working. And then personalization. And this is where I think having a supplement literate provider, ideally a medical doctor, is really critical. Not just buying the thing that you just saw the Instagram ad for, but taking something that is prescribed to you based on your health needs right now and understanding that those needs are going to change. And then eventually you can hopefully stop taking this supplement and maybe take something else. These are the things that I think people miss. There's a cool company called Supco that I'm, full disclosure, I'm an advisor to them. I'm not like involved. I don't run the company or anything, but I'm just an advisor. But they are an online platform to let you track your supplements. And they're also developed a trust score. So you can see everything you're taking, and they've uploaded like, I don't know, tens of thousands of supplements and the level of quality. And all of Parsley's, I'm proud to say, are like the highest quality you can get. But there's also lots of great brands, but then you might realize that you're taking, let's say, a magnesium or something that's not so great, and it'll give you alternatives. And I think giving people some more info about what they're taking is really helpful.
That's great. So it's SUPPCO?
Yeah, Supco. I know it's a little hard
Okay.
to say, but it's a cool, it's an app. It's free.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Okay, that's a great resource. And in terms of people asking for some of these longevity interventions, whether it's rapamycin, metformin, microdosing, GLP-1s, that's sort of the next frontier beyond more basic supplementation. How are you handling that, given that there's not a lot of evidence there right now?
Yeah, when it comes to drugs like rapamycin for expanding health span, the data isn't there. If you want to self experiment and you're open to mouth sores and it's important to you and you're comfortable with the theoretical pathway leading to that kind of outcome, which you won't know until you get there, but okay, then I'm supportive and let's track all your other metrics and make sure you're safe while doing it. But it's not something that we're actively prescribing. Now, GLP-1s are highly researched and have tons of data on them. And I posted on this in my newsletter today and on social. A lot of people are microdosing GLP-1s, which I actually see be quite effective for a lot of people. What I recommend first, however, is are we eating adequate protein and fiber? Are we getting adequate exercise and have we built strong lean muscle mass? Are we taking some of the supplements like Parsley as a GLP-1 metabolic support supplement, which is a green tea extract that helps your body make and boost your own natural GLP-1s. Remember, GLP-1 analogs or drugs are a derivative of our body's own. We make GLP-1s every day. Our GLP-1s we make and they get broken down super fast. The drugs are designed to withstand that breakdown so they last longer, right? And they're more powerful. But if you're eating the right way and moving the right way and building lean muscle mass and meditating and taking certain supplements, your own body isn't broken. Like your natural GLP-1 production will signal to the brain fullness. And because you're eating foods that promote it, you're taking supplements that promote it, and that will work. Now, for some people, we do all of that and we test and we treat any underlying condition or inflammation, and then that's not enough. And then we're prescribing GLP-1s, but where appropriate and where it's going to have the maximum benefit, not just as a default.
Yeah. And I think a lot of people are probably listening to this thinking, I wish my primary care doctor or practice was a lot more like Parsley, just in terms of like your open-mindedness. People always love to hear, what are the longevity practices that you as a doctor personally find the most meaningful?
Number one on my list this year is weight training. I was always a yoga girl, and then I finally forced myself to do Pilates, and then I started to see results, and then I finally started weight training as a woman in my 40s, building lean muscle mass, building bone. These things are going to drive my metabolic health. I'm going to have an easier menopause because of them when I get to that. This is like game changing, and the metabolic boost is great. I can eat even more and feel even more fit. So that's amazing.
How many times a week are you doing that? And are you lifting heavy?
I'm doing it 2 to 3 times a week, and I should be doing it more, but I'm proud of myself for doing
Yes.
it all because this is new for me this week. Another one that I'm really into this year, we got one of those little like 2-person in-home infrared saunas in our basement this year. And there's really great longevity data on sauna, from cardiovascular health improvement to detoxification to mental health. And so I'm doing that a couple times a week. I'm noticing great results in my skin as well. And those are 2 that I've implemented this year. I have a very long list, but those are my top 2 for this year.
And as someone who stays on top of all of the emerging research, what is the emerging research or technology that you are most excited about?
As someone who focuses a lot of her time on women and women's health, I just think that the new renewed focus on hormone replacement therapy for women and understanding that it's highly beneficial for bone health, for brain health, for cardiovascular health, for cancer protection, and expanding that past, right now we're saying if you start it in menopause, great, but you can't start it later. I think we're going to get better data sets than we have today on starting it later. I just think that we're so behind in prescribing HRT, and that all of the emerging research and focus that's happening on it is game changing for women who are suffering from painful sex and UTIs who weren't being prescribed vaginal estrogen, which is totally safe. I mean, it's heartbreaking. And so I think that entire field, I wrote something on LinkedIn recently about, is estrogen the new longevity drug? I just think that there's a really emerging and interesting understanding of how we use hormones to support longevity, but also prevent disease.
Amazing. Okay. And last question, how do you balance longevity with actually enjoying your life and all of its indulgences?
I don't do things that don't feel good. So my sauna time feels great. And it's like my little mini date with my husband. We sit in there together.
Yeah.
I love cooking and I love eating healthy food and I love going to restaurants, but eating well. I feel really good when I exercise. I pop my supplements right before bed because you know what? That's the only time I can remember to take them. Everyone always asks me, what's the best time to take your supplements? And I'm always like, the time that you will take them.
Right. Yeah.
Because what I see is that people get all wrapped up in like this at this time of day. And I'm like, take the supplement when you're going to take the supplement. For me, that's
Totally.
night. So for me, it's my motivation is, I wrote about this in today's newsletter. I dropped my 8-year-old off at camp this weekend and he
You
is
cried.
I cried. And I've cried every day. And I'm so confused when I look in his room and it's empty. And I'm writing like panicky emails to the camp directors asking how he's doing. And it was a real kind of like gut punch, what I'm calling momgevity moment. Because for me, it actually made me even more committed to doing all these things to take care of myself and to expand my well-being and my vitality now and my health span in the future, because I want every minute with him I can get.
Totally.
Yeah.
Robin Berzin, thank you so much for pulling up a chair to the Wellness Roundtable. And if people want to sign up for your newsletter or follow Parsley or you, where can people find you if they want to learn more?
Robin Berzin MD is my website, and Robin Berzin MD on all the social platforms, and then parsleyhealth.com or Parsley Health on social as well if you're interested in my medical practice.
Amazing. Definitely sign up for Robin's newsletter. It is one of the very, very best to land in my inbox, and I devour it. Thank you again, Robin, and we'll see you soon.
See you soon.
Thank you for joining us for today's episode of the Wellness Roundtable. This podcast was produced by Emily Roberts and Ali Alkiza of Over Lunch. Music was provided by Mindstream. And a very special thank you to Susie Ellis, Nancy Davis, and the entire Global Wellness Institute team. As we wrap, it's important to remember that while this podcast is filled with valuable insights about the latest longevity science and innovations, it is not a substitute for professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Our conversations are designed to inform and inspire, but should not replace the personalized guidance of your healthcare providers. If today's episode sparked your interest, please subscribe to our podcast, leave a review, and share it with friends. To learn more about the Global Wellness Institute, please visit our website, globalwellnessinstitute.org. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.